Thanks very much. I'm talking about Council's invasive pest control scheme. Before I get started, I just want to say that I'm not trying to advocate that this is what everyone should do or it's a one-size-fits-all approach by any means, but it works for us, and hopefully this presentation is of use to other people involved in the management of invasive plants and animals. So what is the invasive pest control scheme? Effectively it's a levy, but it differs from other levies in that people only pay the levy if they don't meet their pest management responsibilities. So the levy is applied across the board to certain general rating categories, but it's coupled with an upfront concession. So people on their rates notice they'll see an in and an out, but like I said, they retain that concession if they meet their obligations. If they don't meet their obligations, that concession is removed via issue of a supplementary rates notice. Why did we do this? We did it to increase voluntary compliance with pest management obligations in recognition of the real costs that are incurred by landholders and council in treating uncontrolled pests. We didn't go into this blind. We had quite a significant program of private property inspections, issuing enforcement notices, that sort of thing, for over 5 years. So we had a pretty good idea of what the lay of the land was like. We found that old system, if you like, inefficient and largely ineffective. So we thought that things were getting worse rather than better, even with that significant investment. So as with all levies, it works. The head of power is under the Local Government Act. The levy applies to certain general rating categories. There's around about 5,300, give or take, properties involved in the scheme each year. And the way it works is we send out an info pack about July each year and give landholders 30 days to return a basic property pest management plan. We call it a control works form. We give one reminder and a further 30 days to get that in. We've got officers reviewing those forms and undertaking inspections, having plenty of discussions with landholders. After that other second lot of 30 days, we issue supplementary rates notices. And that's to people who haven't submitted a form, and then later on in the year, people who don't do the work they've said they're going to do. That's the treatment they get too, to put it in a nutshell. There's a map of Southern Downs Regional Council. All those white properties are the ones included in the scheme. So you'll see it's virtually just the townships and state lands excluded. And we've got a big range of property sizes and land uses in our region. You'll see from that, they're quite small rural residential blocks right up to over 10,000 hectare grazing enterprises. The pests that are included is everything that's declared under the Act, under our local laws, but we have a focus on our top 5, which are those species mentioned there. How's it going? So Council approved this scheme in 17-18 on the basis of a 3-year sort of trial period. We had 5,800 properties involved in the first year. We issued those with the rates notices, which we'll never do again. We were overwhelmed with a 91% return rate of those control works forms, but more importantly, we saw unprecedented levels of weed control going on, participation in coordinated baiting programs and those sorts of things also increased. We issued 465 supplementary rates notices in that first year, but Council took the view that as it was the first year and we're taking having quite a focus on education, that we provided a degree of leniency, and we revoked over 100 of those. So on paper we sort of lost money, but we believe we gained in productivity, biodiversity and amenity. So the second year we refined the properties that were involved, so we dropped about 500 out. We issued them separate to rates, which made our customer service people very happy. We got an additional FTE through the QFPI, around 2.2, so that was very helpful in helping administer the scheme, but also helping to measure it. We're really wrapped up in rolling the scheme out and doing the nuts and bolts, but that gave us the ability to step back and start to measure what we were doing. We took it online. We automated a lot of the correspondence through our Tech One system, and we started measuring change through online surveys and other different bits and pieces. We got a 93% return rate last year. We did about 350 SUPs. The drought really started to take hold about then. So again, we processed a lot of requests for reinstatement of those concessions, and as you could appreciate, I've been taking an empathetic and understanding approach to that. So this year we carved a few properties off again. we've been attracting some further external funds, particularly with exclusion fencing this year. There's no sign of the drought breaking, which is making things really difficult, as you can imagine. We're getting, from one side of things, people who we're trying to enforce compliance on are saying that they're really negatively impacted by the drought, and they are, and we don't dispute that. We try to work with them, but we get the other side of the coin where people who, through their own goodwill, have participated in the scheme, met their obligations, and they're screaming foul about the person next door that's not doing their work. So it's a difficult balancing act, and we're doing it the only way we think you can, and that's on a case-by-case approach. I talked about measurement before. We engaged a consultant earlier this year to undertake a triple bottom line analysis of the whole scheme. I mentioned before, Council initially approved the scheme for 3 years, so we're going to take the findings of this review now to Council for their consideration, hopefully have this embedded in our policies as an ongoing thing, and make refinements as we go. The preliminary findings of the evaluations show some pretty impressive figures. We're really happy with it. So the net benefit, taking into account all economic, environmental and social costs and benefits, range between 45 and 96 million over the next 30 years. The range, for any accountants in the room, is to do with low, medium, high impact. I won't go into the ins and outs of net present values and things like that, but you can see the way that those benefits are realised in that text on that slide. That also shows, that study, the projections in the decrease in infested lands across our region. So again, with low, medium and high, we're looking at between 300,000 and 415,000 hectares of further reduction in infested lands. And a footnote to that is we asked the consultant to go back and model what would have happened in terms of an increase without the scheme. And that's showing really conservatively 100, 150,000 hectare increase over the next decade. And those are decade figures too, sorry, I should have said. How is the levy used? Lots of people ask, do we go on to non-compliant people's places and do the work for them? No, we don't. That is still their responsibility. It is one thing we're grappling with, is how we treat people who continue to not comply. Some people are happy just to pay the levy and not do the work. Couple that with the drought, it's a bit tricky at the moment. Council elections. So the money we collect by law has to be used for the purpose for which it was collected, so towards Council's pest management program. And Council's done things like waive hire fees for spray units, bought additional spray units for the public to use. Council's funding aerial wild dog baiting after we've seen the end of funding programs, well, not funding programs, but our external funds like QFPI funds for aerial baiting. They're funding aerial deer control, which similarly we've had external funds that started to run out. Increasing our budget for dingo spur fence maintenance and patrol and mechanical weed control. So in a nutshell, what it funds is strategic initiatives that provide benefit across the whole region. That's it. If you want to see any more information, a copy of the policy, the forms, anything like that, there's a dedicated page on our website. Thank you.